Today we are looking at NATO Alliance in continuation of our international treaties discussions, and I want to understand using NATO Alliance as an example of how countries collaborate on the international stage. It's very important to understand the fundamentals, the reason for collaboration, and the outcome of collaboration. These are very important points that we need to understand when we talk about alliances, not just NATO Alliance, but alliances across the world. And there are so many alliances across the world where countries have come together with a common objective. And oftentimes the objective is centered around politics, diplomacy, military, economics, and so forth. So we have NATO Alliance as one of them. We had Warsaw Pact during the Cold War that had similar objectives in terms of military protection. And currently we have smaller alliances across the world. ECOWAS, for example, is in West Africa. It's a military, economic, and political alliance, about 14 to 15 countries in the region. And even in Latin America, we have similar alliances and so forth. So the NATO Alliance is a very important alliance because, especially within the context of the 21st century and the emerging threats of China and Russia specifically, encroaching on the Arctic and threatening the safety of NATO countries like Canada, the United States, to mention but two. So this is very important for our understanding, and we want to understand the meaning of NATO and how these countries have bound together over time to support one another and to ensure that the safety and security of its members are assured. So NATO's purpose is to safeguard freedom. Please take note of this. Students, let's begin to outline this. So before we actually go into it, let's define it. It is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, right? So North Atlantic countries in the North Atlantic area, but of course it has extended to countries in the Middle East or in the Persian Gulf area. Turkey, for example, is a member, but the founding members were pretty much Western countries based in the North, for example. So you have Canada, United States, so you have Britain, France, and Germany, and so forth. Those countries, 12 founded members in 1949. Funded this organization, but now it has 32 countries. Please take note, 32 countries currently make up NATO, but it was founded in 1949 by 12 countries, and those countries are still consisting of the core of the NATO Alliance. So the main purpose is to safeguard freedom and security. So let's highlight that here. So the first point here is freedom, and then we have security as well, right? So freedom from what? So let's stop and ask the question, freedom for what, right? So freedom to determine your own destiny, freedom to safeguard your sovereignty as a country, freedom to ensure that your democratic values are intact and not violated by some, stronger power, foreign power, what have you. So freedom and security, right? So freedom and security going hand in hand is there to ensure the freedom and security of its members, right? Through two practical means, right? So please take note. So we have freedom, we have security, and it is ensuring freedom and security through one, please take note, let's put here a political. This is political. It means, right? Political means. And what does that mean when we say political means? It means interactions. It means diplomacy, essentially. It means understanding. It means, policies, and it means ensuring that the other parties, understand your values, democratic values, and how you carry out those values, etc. Right? So political means is one of the ways it's ensuring freedom and security. And again, for example, if a country has an election, it is entrenching democracy, right? And when you entrench democracy, you are guaranteeing some measure of security as well. Entrenching democracy in a country, that's political, right? Making policies and laws and ensuring the rule of law, that's has the legal component to it, but it's also political. Is an students? So we want to understand it from this context. It is ensuring its freedom, the freedom of its members, and then security of its members through political means. And diplomacy can be part of that political means as well, although sometimes diplomacy can stand alone. But diplomacy, by and large, is a political instrument, right? So we use diplomacy to achieve a purpose. We use politics to achieve a purpose. And by using politics, we are talking about values, right? So politics here, we're talking about values, underscore the values of a country, and those values then entrench democracy and stability, right? And when a country has stability, what happens? It's respected, it's able to protect its sovereignty, and it ensures its freedom of its citizens. And let's understand it very well. Now, that's the first means, right? So the second is military, right? Which is key and huge. Military means. Now, what does that mean? Right, military means, right, the threat of NATO has really deterred a lot of countries from harming even the smallest country in NATO. Right now, recently we have Sweden, Finland joined NATO. They are the newest members of NATO, and for the longest time, they did not want to join NATO. But given the aggression of Russia in attacking Ukraine, it has become necessary for these countries to seek shelter, so to speak, under the NATO umbrella. So Finland, sharing 800-mile border with Russia, saw it fit to quickly join the alliance. That way, if Russia attacks it, the rest of the countries, the 31 countries, will come to its aid. Right? So this is very important. The military means it becomes a deterrence to countries. And that brings us to, so let's put that here first. So military, right? Military means, right? Students, please take note of this. We're going to come back to this when we look at NATO from really within the context of interdependency and so forth. So military alliance, right, is another means. It ensures freedom and security. And by military alliance, we mean the countries coming together to defend the alliance, right? We have the United States with the superpower with nuclear weapons. We have France and Britain, superpowers with nuclear weapons as well. And these countries present a deterrence to the rest of the world, so to speak, and specifically to the other bigger powers in North Korea, China, and Russia. So it's important for us to have this understanding, right? Okay, so established in 1949, like we said, the alliance links North America and Europe to ensure mutual protection and lasting peace. Established in 1949 by the North Atlantic Treaty, the alliance links North America and Europe, right? Please take note, North America, two countries in North America, essentially Canada and the United States, and then Europe, of course, the rest of Europe. So here then we said at the beginning it was 12 countries in 1949. Now we have added 20 more countries to make a total of 32 countries, right? So the core principles and task of NATO is collective defense, right? So let's put that here. So core function. This is core function, right? So collective defense, what does that mean? It means Article 5, right? So Article 5 is an important piece here. Please take note, students. Article 5 means, right, attack on one attack is attack on all. If one country attacks, if Russia, for example, attacks a NATO country, which is Finland, for example, that is sharing a 800-mile border with it, well, then it has attacked essentially 31 countries, right? And the 31 countries will quickly gather to come to the aid of Finland. That is a deterrence. Countries are afraid of that. How many countries can withstand the wrath of 32 countries? Not too many countries out there, not even superpowers, so, right? So rooted in Article 5, which states that an armed attack against one member is treated as an attack against all members. Attack on one is attack on all. Article 5 is a very, very critical piece of NATO. As a matter of fact, it's a core objective of NATO. And that is the deterrence there. That's the deterrence this alliance offers. And that's what is made it attractive to include countries around the world that is seeking that security and that freedom and ensuring that their sovereignty is upheld. So collective defense, then, let's put that here. So collective defense, right? And Article 5, right? So we already talked about Article 5, but let's just put it here. This is Article 5, right? And in the spirit of Article 5, we're going to talk about how that really played out over a 20-year period in Afghanistan. But before we do that, let's look at the other objectives, right? Or core principles. Crisis management is another one. So let's put that here. This is crisis management. Right? What does that mean? Crisis management, preventing conflicts, right? There is no need to rush to war if we can prevent conflicts. There's no need to start attacking and bombing countries if you can prevent conflict, if you can work out your differences. So it's one of the key objectives then is crisis management, right? So preventing conflicts, managing active crisis, and stabilizing post-conflict environments beyond borders when needed, right? So where conflict has occurred, going in there to ensure stability, rebuild, build confidence and trust and so forth amongst the populace, etc. So crisis management becomes a key function of NATO as well. So first, collective defense, Article 5, attack on one is attack on all, and then crisis management, preventing crisis from happening, managing active crisis. If crises have already happened, managing it effectively and minimizing damage and loss of life, and stabilizing post-conflict environments beyond border when needed. And then finally, the cooperative security, which means promoting democratic values, cooperative dialogue, and joint defense planning amongst the 32 countries, right? So let's put that here as well. So the third key objective is cooperative, right? So let's put that here, cooperative security, right? Cooperative security. And under this umbrella, right, we talk about promoting democratic values of human rights. For example, if you take a look at most of the countries, I won't say all, but most of the countries have some respectable democratic values, human rights, for example, right? Most of them are capitalist countries that believe in free trade and liberalization of trade and so forth, right? So promoting democratic values, cooperative dialogue, and joint defense planning amongst the countries. So they have this planning that is ongoing, and from time to time they get together and they coordinate their trainings and so forth, right, etc. And that's expected in the military alliances. Cooperative security. So let's go back to the first one, right, in terms of core functions of NATO. Collective defense, Article 5. Please don't forget, what does that mean? Attack on one is attack on all. Attack one of the 32 members, you have attacked all of the 32 members. All of the 32 members will come after you. Crisis management, preventing conflict before it happens. If it has happened already, managing it effectively to minimize damage and stabilizing post-conflict environments beyond borders when needed. And then, of course, cooperative security, promoting democratic values, cooperative dialogue, and joint defense amongst the countries. Now, let's see how Article 5 played out in a 20-year period from 2001 to 2021 in Afghanistan. So we all know what happened on September 11, and that's the beginning of the enactment of Article 5, collective defense, because on September 11, right, September 11, we all know that, 2001, there was an attack on the United States. We're talking about the Twin Tower has been hit by flying planes, and the architect of that destruction was Osama bin Laden, as determined. And Osama bin Laden was hiding in Afghanistan, right? So what happened? The United States went to Afghanistan and attacked that country. The idea was that Osama bin Laden was on their territory and is being given shelter. And many other countries sent soldiers to support the United States. And this is where Article 5 was really activated and in action, and we can see it clearly. So countries around the world sent soldiers. Now let's take a look at this chart here. It says here number of military casualties in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021. Now we can see here the United States, of course, leading the effort with the most military amongst the member countries, had 2,461 casualties. It's very unfortunate, but that many American servicemen and women lost their lives in the conflict. And then, of course, 457 for the United Kingdom, 158 for Canada, right? So Canada was not attacked, but yet sent soldiers in defense of the United States. France, 90, Germany, 60, Italy, 40, Denmark, 43, Australia, 41, Poland, 40, Spain, 35, and other countries, 185. You can see how all of this is playing out. So this is a very important point for us to understand and how NATO functions. An attack on one is an attack on all. The United States was attacked on September 11, 2001, and guess what? How many countries we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the other could be several other countries. So 9 countries we know send soldiers, and as all the soldiers suffer casualty, you can see here. And collectively, then we say quite a number of soldiers were killed from these countries, right, in the service of NATO, defending the United States physically. The United States was attacked, but they considered themselves attacked, and they were willing to send soldiers to Afghanistan to die on behalf of NATO. That is the essence of NATO. That's the essence of really countries coming together to defend one another. Now, let's recap this quickly. Purpose of NATO is to ensure freedom of its members. We talked about what that means: democratic values, human rights, trade liberalization, capitalism, free market, and so forth, ensuring freedom of movement, sovereignty, etc., ensuring security, right? So security of its borders, security of its citizens, and every country seeks security. And so to ensure that the 32 members have security. And it achieves these two key objectives through political means and military means, right? We explained that, right? Political means, we can have diplomacy embedded in political means. We have policies, discussions, talks, political collaborations, and all of those things are part of the political means. Military means, of course, that's very obvious. To send military to defend our territory within NATO. Very, very important. Core functions is to ensure collective defense, Article 5, the attack on one is attack on all, crisis management, ensure that crises are prevented, and where crises are not prevented, then to effective management of crisis, and to ensure or stabilizing environments that have been subject to conflict. And of course, cooperative security, which is the promotion of democratic rule, the promotion of democratic values, and ensuring that countries are part of that tradition. So this is NATO. This is just a summary of NATO, its objective, and why it's important, and its impact in the last several years. Now you can see, again, taking a look at this chart, you can see how these countries sacrifice soldiers in accordance to Article 5. The United States was attacked on September 11, and guess what? At least we know 9 countries sent soldiers, and some of them did not come back alive. That is NATO, international treaty. We'll talk about international treaty. We begin to understand the resolve of countries. We begin to understand the objective of those treaties. We begin to understand within the context of geopolitics, we understand why these treaties are important, because not a single country can defend itself against several countries. Collectively, they are more powerful than individually. And that is the crust of this. The collective strength and collective resolve and collective pressure and collective deterrence. That is what alliance is about, international alliance is about. So let's understand this piece, but more importantly, how it is applied. We're going to move on in our next class and begin to look at these different alliances and then international treaties, and we'll begin to look at international treaties within the context of sovereignty. How do international treaties interact with countries' sovereignty? Is there a violation? Do they undermine those sovereignty? Or do they coexist harmoniously? Right? So we're going to take a look at those when we meet again.